2 men, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses, 8 kids. Get ready to enter the Thrivetime Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
All right, Thrive Nation, welcome back to the conversation. It is the Thrivetime Show on your radio and podcast download. Now, on today's show, you are in for a treat because we have an entrepreneur and a fitness expert all in one in Mr. Brett Denton on today's show. Mr. Brett Denton is the founder of Cavell Fitness. They're in Boise, Idaho. Brett, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Clay. Thanks for having me on.
Can you give the listeners just a little bit of a background? Because you played college football, and then you started your own business. Can you give us just a little bit of a look into your college background and then into, a little history into Cavell Fitness before you drop knowledge bombs on us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I played football at Boise State, the Boise State Blue Turf.
Nice.
I ended my senior year was the year we played OU, Oklahoma there in the Fiesta Bowl. So It was a good way to go out. And then from there, I got into working for somebody else, which didn't seem to be my forte. But the biggest issue was I was burning myself out. And that's what led me to Cavell Fitness and Nutrition. So I was overworking, not taking care of myself, not eating well, not sleeping well, just that normal burnout that people go through. And so I kind of started to decide there must be a better way. I had been fit my entire life until now. And, I was depressed, wasn't happy, was burning out. So I decided to figure it out, and I did. And then that's what happened with Cavell is once I figured it out for myself, I started to spread the love and show other people how to do it.
Now, Cavell, the word Cavell is Yiddish, if I understand. It's a Yiddish word. What does it mean to you? What does the name Cavell Fitness mean to you? Why did you decide to call your business Cavell Fitness?
Yeah, it's a great question. Aside from it being impossible for people to say and spell, the reason that we picked Cavell is Cavell means happy and proud, especially in community, and that's what we want to create for our people. That's what we want to live by, right? We want to surround ourselves with people that we're happy and we're proud to have around, and that are going out and accomplishing things that they're happy and proud to be doing.
Okay, so on today's show, we're talking about balancing wealth and health, healthy habits for sustainable high performance with you, Mr. Brett Denton. So can you talk to us first off, your point number one here, you wrote here, it's super important that you're moving all day long. You're moving, you're grooving. Why is it so important that we move all day?
Well, here's the problem with people that end up sitting at a computer all day, or which is most professions these days, is our bodies generally are designed. We've got 2 legs, and so we're designed to be on those legs, moving around most of the day. And what happens when we don't do that is we start to get sick. And there's study after study after study proving this. One of them from the Mayo Clinic, they did an analysis of 13 studies that were based on sitting time and activity levels. And they found that those who sat more than 8 hours a day, okay, so 8 hours a day with no physical activity had a risk of dying.
It doesn't sound very positive. It's a negative stat. Do we have a risk of dying immediately if we are sitting for 8 hours? I mean, is it just like you're going to
drop dead like a fly?
This just in, Marshall. If we are sitting for 8 hours, we will die immediately.
Just keel over.
Brett, I'm moving. I'm moving my legs. No, but there's a study here done by the Mayo Clinic, and I just want to share this out there. It says when you sit, you use less energy than you do when you stand or move. Research has linked sitting for long periods of time with a number of health concerns. Obesity, says, and a cluster of conditions, including blood pressure, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat, abnormal cholesterol levels, fat around the waist. They make the Thrivetime show is supposed to be a positive show. You're a negative man, so you're saying that sitting is the new smoking.
Well, I'm not saying it, but Dr. James Levine is saying it, and this guy He was similar to me. He found himself being very unhealthy. He'd go home, he'd sit on the couch, he'd drink a beer, and he's like, this isn't right. My wife's telling me I'm fat. I got to do something. And so he's actually, so if you ever heard of the treadmill desks, these desks where you stand up while you're working and you're on this treadmill.
Yeah, I built one as you just made that last I immediately have built one. It's a weird deal, but Marshall and Andrew are here constructing this thing as we speak. So I'm trying to, it's kind of awkward. They're down there making this desk right now. But yeah, I have seen these and I am now motivated to make one right now.
Yeah, so James Levine's the guy, and so he termed this sitting is new smoking. Basically, he said sitting's more dangerous than smoking, kills more people than HIV, and is more treacherous than parachuting. We're sitting ourselves to death, right? And so when you look at that and say, okay, well, how many hours a day am I sitting? And you really start to take a look at that, you'll probably be pretty surprised.
Okay, fine. So you've proved your point here. One, we got to keep moving. So if I have a job that requires me to code or do graphic design, Brett, or do something that requires me to, sit and think, what's the best way to counteract that? I mean, if I do have to sit, it's impossible for me to ride a treadmill while writing legal documents, okay? Or a jerk like me, I have to write books, that kind of thing, or do show outlines. What's the best, most practical way to counteract that?
Well, so CNN.com reports based on a study that they found that 30-minute stretches is kind of the magic number there. And so for people who frequently, so this isn't like, one time you sit and you knock out a book and it takes you, 6 hours or whatever it is. But people who frequently sit in stretches of 30 minutes or less had a 55% lower risk of death compared to people who frequently sat for 30 minutes or more. Now, that goes up significantly when you get to 90 minutes. So if you sit for 90 minutes, you got a twofold greater chance of dying early than if you're sitting less than 90 minutes. So the magic number is 30 there. So if you can get up, so to your point, if you have a job where you have to be seated, you don't have a crew of people to build a treadmill desk for you as you work, you want to get up about every 30 minutes and just go for a walk for about 5 minutes. Just walk around, say hi to people. Just get up, get on your feet, get moving.
Okay, so you gotta keep moving there. To make it very actionable. If you're sitting in a job, just get up about once an hour, move around a little bit, grab some water, make it happen. Just keep moving. Keep moving. Yep. Body moving. It's a quote the Beastie Boys. Body moving. We got to keep moving. All right, so move all day long. Now, the next concept you want to talk about is that it's not necessarily a good move to kind of sit, all day and then all of a sudden do like super intense workouts. Why is that not a good move?
Well, if you look at, the history of the human race, or you look at these things called blue zones where these people live for substantially longer than they live in other parts of the world, the body's designed to be moving in kind of these non-stressful situations all day long. So it's gentle movement all day long. And, so example, when you warm up before a workout, there's a purpose for that. We want to get the blood flowing again. We want to get the muscles pumping. We want to get ready to work out so we don't injure something. Well, what happens with people they sit all day and then they go and they get some type of strenuous workout, which is all the rage right now with your high intensity training and your cycling classes and all that. Well, it's like all of a sudden ramming a whole bunch of water through a hose. And Katie Bauman, who's a biomechanist, she wrote the book Move Your DNA. She says that you might actually be increasing your risk of cardiac issues by doing this. So she says don't sit all day and then jam in a workout because, again, you're just cranking up the blood flow into your body, which isn't always a good thing if it's not ready for it.
One thing, Marshall, we need to talk about this after today's show because that whole thing you've been doing recently where Brett, Marshall's very into fitness. He wants to kind of bring a fit culture to Thrive. And so recently he's been
after 8 hour day to get the
blood pressure up, to get the energy going. So he said, why don't we think about playing something kind of similar to dodgeball? And I thought, this makes a lot of sense in the opposite of an open area. Maybe we could do that. And he said, but instead of dodging balls, let's dodge axes. And so it really gets the energy up there, really gets but that's not going to be a move anymore, Marshall.
No, we just need to get the adrenaline pumping, and I thought it'd be fun.
Okay, so we can no longer should sit around all day dormantly and then immediately dodge balls, but we should also not dodge axes because it's going to freak out our system.
If you can dodge an axe, you can dodge a ball.
There you go.
Okay, so again, just a recap here to make this actionable out there. Move number 2. So one is if you have a job, about every hour, get up for 5 minutes, move around. How you doing? Move around. If you can, stand up while working, do that, okay? Action item number 2 is if you do sit all day, don't immediately go into a wind sprint over to your local Mexican restaurant for dinner. I mean, just kind of, you got to balance that out. Just don't. I mean, these seem like kind of common things, Brett, or common sense, but you train people there in Boise, Idaho, and how often are people doing this? How often are people sitting around dormantly all day, not moving at all?
Well, the funny thing is the old saying, common sense isn't too common. And that's the case when it comes to how we treat our bodies. We don't, everything that I cover for the most part is all the basics. You got to eat right, you got to sleep right, you got to move more, all of those things, these things that everybody knows, but everybody needs to be reminded of on a frequent basis. Most people sit all day. If we start taking an activity journal, just like we would a food journal, you start looking at, holy cow, I'm sitting 10 to 13 hours a day. Then I go sit in my car. Then I go sit for dinner. And then guess what? I'm in bed. And I do it again. I wake up. I sit in my car to commute to work. I sit down at work. I sit down on the way home. I sit down for dinner. I do it again. We just keep doing that over and over and over again.
I know this might sound shady for listeners out there, but Marshall, one thing I've been doing this past week is I've been tapping into the surveillance cameras that are available in different offices throughout the world. I've used the dark net, the dark web, the Silk Road, if you will.
Oh, wow.
So I go on there, and I've been able to log in, Brett, into the surveillance cameras in people's at their places of work, not at their home. I didn't want to be shady. I wanted to be high integrity here, Marshall.
Yeah.
So I've been hacking in, and then I've been able to zoom in, and I've been able to read the movement journals of the average American. And so now, Marshall, without any further ado, I'm going to read just a few passages from the activity journals of the average Americans without their consent here on the Thrivetime Show. Marshall, does that sound fair?
This sounds like it's going to be very interesting.
Okay, here we go, Brett. This is the journal entry 1. Day 2. I did not move my body, but I intend to tomorrow. That wasn't a very... Day 3. I did walk into the office, and I did leave, so I guess I had 2 movements.
2 movements, huh?
Day
2. Only 2.
Day 3. This isn't funny. This is my journal. Day 3. I went to CrossFit, and I appear to have torn my... I don't know if it's possible, but it looks like I tore my knee and broke my sacroiliac and hurt my pride in the process, and now I will never move again. I mean, Brett, do you not see that? Where that's
pretty much it.
Is that not what happens?
Up to most people, yeah.
Can you? I'm not ripping on CrossFit per se. I'm just saying I work with a lot of doctors, and I help them grow their companies. And it's well documented what we do. Companies like Revolution Health or spine surgeons or whatever. And I am not exaggerating. You're seeing 35, 37, 40-year-old people that have not moved their body for close to a decade. Then they go over to CrossFit and they move their entire body. And they begin to... They get a shirt that says, like, be amazing or be intense or get ripped or get jacked or get off the field or whatever. And they work out. They start lifting stuff and moving things around, and then one by one, they all just get injured. I think first they just tear their pride in half. It just complete rupture of their pride, and then they never work out again, or they stop for another. Can you talk to me about your approach at Cavell? How's it different from the CrossFit? Let's get in there. Let's get pissed. Let's get intense. Let's throw beer barrels around, and let's get crazy throwing kegs, and let's take bike chains and pull tires, and let's jump around and try to avoid an axe that Marshall's throwing. How is Cavell different from places like CrossFit that have been shown to cause a lot of injuries?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the issues that we have, good or bad, in America is we make everything as extreme as it possibly can be, right? So if it's not extreme, especially for the high-level CEO, like I haven't done anything my entire life for the past 20 years, but now I'm going to come forge elite fitness when I haven't even forged any level of basic human movement. And so we're kind of different from that in the sense that we're going to take you from wherever the person is. So let's say you haven't worked out in 10 years. Great. Let's get you started. Let's get your body functioning correctly. It's kind of like a tune-up for your car. We got to get everything working right. We got to get your body moving. We got to get the mobility there. We got to get the stability there. And so we're going to kind of break you in easily. So in our training sessions, we have a level 1 movement. We have a level 2 movement. We have a level 3 movement. Level 3 is going to be if you've been exercising for a long time with us. Level 1's like you haven't worked out ever in your life or you haven't seen inside of a gym for the last 30 years. And so we want to make sure that we slowly move you along the path so that we're creating a lifestyle for you instead of making you some, beast that's hardened and ready for battle.
I actually was reading, Marshall, some ads here that you can find. A lot of times companies, they're starting out, these companies, they like to do organic marketing, so you can find their ads on Craigslist, Brad, a lot of these fitness companies, a lot of these startup companies that are not established like Cavell Fit up there in Boise. And they'll advertise Marshall in these kind of local Craigslist. You'll see them like they have these kind of ads. You'll see them on Facebook and that kind of thing. And this is what you could be doing, Brett. I think a lot of people out there, when they think about working out, this is what they're afraid of. It says, sprint through lava, dodge axes, pull tires, and dodge more axes while totally nude at the high-intensity gym. No, I'm serious. I think a lot of people feel like that's what working out is because there's so many of those kinds of places out there. So I'm not saying we have a ton of listeners in Boise. Maybe we do. But for anybody out there who says, I'm looking for a place to work out, where should I start? Let's say I live in, I don't know, something kind of sexy, kind of a big town, kind of a sprawling tourist community like Tulsa, Oklahoma. What kind of fitness should we start out with? Where should we go? What are some good brands? Or what's the kind of gym we should be looking for?
Well, first and foremost, I always recommend people to start to walk. So just like we've talked about, you just start to move all day long. That whole 10,000 step rule, really, that was the whole science behind that. That was more or less of a kind of a guess. So if you're hitting 8 to 10,000 plus steps a day, that's step number 1. You don't need to find a gym for that. Step number 2 is you find a place that you feel comfortable. And so, if you walk into a CrossFit place or one of those high intensity places and you're not feeling comfortable, you're not feeling like the coaches are going to modify the movements for you to make sure that you're getting started where you need to, then that's probably not a place for you. So number 2, let's get to a place where we feel comfortable with the people. We feel like they're educated. We feel like this is a place that makes sense for us. As far as specific places, each town is so different. You just have to find what's going to work for you. But again, finding that comfort level and starting out slow is much better than jumping in and kind of going all out effort.
Okay. Now, point number 3 you wanted to talk about today, as we're talking about balancing wealth and health, how to get into a sustainable level of high performance here. Talk to me about the importance of eating mindfully. What do you mean by that? What does it mean to eat mindfully?
Well, here's the problem. So Clay and or Marshall, if I ask you guys, what do you think you should be eating? You probably have an answer for that, right? I mean, you probably know. Like, what would you say?
I'd say no sweets, no wheat, and we can't drink anymore for lunch.
Yep.
That'll be kind of my
no more drinking at 8 a.m.
So avoid alcohol, avoid wheat, and avoid sweets. That's all I got for you, Brett. That's all we know. That is it.
Okay. Marshall, you about the same lines there?
Yeah, I was gonna say what I'm currently doing is I'm just eating everything that's in front of me, and I've realized that that doesn't help you get in shape, but rather become a shape.
Oh wow,
that's true.
Wow.
But you talk to most people, and most people say, yeah, I probably need to eat more vegetables. I need to eat less sweets. I need to, everybody kind of knows what they should be doing. But the problem with our society is 2 problems. Number 1, we've made it easier to eat healthy than it ever has been, but it's also harder to eat or easier to eat unhealthy than it's ever been, right? Does that make sense?
Marshall, put down your Lucky Charms. Don't eat Lucky Charms while we're doing this interview. Show some respect.
I've been eating Corn Puffs the entire time.
Quit eating Doritos while Brett's talking. Show respect.
That's right. So Jennifer Kronberg on Psychology Today, this kind of explains what a lot of people say they have this emotional eating kind of issue. And she says emotional eating can be a direct result of being conscious of what or why you're eating. So therapists call this unconscious eating. So unconscious eating is when you're done with your meal and you continue to pick at it, slowly eating the remaining portion that you intended to leave behind. So this is like, you're sitting at dinner and you're not really hungry, but you didn't eat all your food. And so you just keep eating anyways, because you're having a good dinner conversation, your food's there, and you just keep eating.
Well, it's because, okay. Well, let me say this real quick, Brett. I'll tell you why we do it. I'll tell you why we do it, Brett. One is you go out to a restaurant, right? And they say, "Do you want the bread?" And you say, "What?" And they go, "Do you want some bread?" And you go, no. And then they bring it out anyway. And then you look at it, Brett, and you think to yourself, you have like flashbacks to your dad, and your dad would say to you things like, "Well, you can't get up unless you eat all of it. When I was your age, I had no food at all. And if there's people in China right now starving, so you're going to eat all." And you just hear it in your head, and you see the bread, and you hear your dad yelling at you, and then you say, "Well, I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it." And the next thing you know, they like, "Do you want some more bread?" And you go, "Yeah." And then bread, you get that buttery bread over there at that. What is that place? What's the steakhouse that has the best buttery bread in the world? It's the Texas Roadhouse.
Oh yeah.
Those people. Yeah. And then you go to and then you're like, next week I'm not doing that. So now you go to the Olive Garden, Brett. You go over there to the Olive Garden, and the guy says, would you like the breadsticks? Would you like the breadsticks? And you say, no. And they say, come on, would you like the breadsticks? And pretty soon you've had like 8 bowls of bread. It just, I think it's the bread, Brett. I think it's the whole deal. We're just sitting there eating that bread. Help us, Brett. Help us.
Well, you actually have a good point there. So, the opiates. So that there's some opiate ingredients in some of these things. And so opiates, I'm sure you guys aren't familiar with this, but that's the active ingredient in cocaine and heroin. Some other narcotics as well.
Marshall, why are you so familiar with that?
Yeah. I eat a lot of bread.
Sorry, Marshall has eyes lit up like, I know all about this.
This is right up my alley. So Jennifer Kronberg also says, I've often asked people what they would have to feel if they didn't binge or overeat. And the common answer is I'd have nothing to look forward to, right? So if I'm not binging or overeating, what am I looking forward to? And again, this kind of goes back to that opiate effect. So at the end of a long day, we have some ice cream or we have a whole bunch of bread, at one of those steakhouses. And that temporarily soothes that. Like, it's kind of like, sitting down to watch TV or, taking some narcotics, because that opiate effect kind of goes into effect there, which is why we get addicted to these things. That's why we get addicted to the sugary stuff, why we get addicted to the bread. And so that's an important thing to watch out for. And if we just become mindful about not just mindlessly going and eating these things, we'll be able to start breaking that habit.
Now, here is something that I think it's interesting that you noted here on today's show notes, is you really don't ever want to get to a place where you let food become your only pleasure in life. And I think a lot of the entrepreneurs who are out there listening, you delay gratification all the time. You don't spend money on stuff you shouldn't spend money on. You don't waste time at work. You don't engage in narcotics anymore. You don't. There's a lot of things you're not doing. You're delaying gratification. So then you're looking for one pleasure area. You consult your Bible and you realize, well, prostitution's not an option. Drugs aren't an option. I'll just eat some bread. So I think you have to find healthy pleasures, right? You have to find something that you look forward to that's healthy. Bread, because I think a lot of people eat when they're bored. I think a lot of people are bored and they say, I'm just going to watch Netflix and eat all this bread. Can you help us there, Brett, for anybody out there? Because you've helped a ton of people get in shape, man. What do you recommend for adults out there that are wanting to live a healthy lifestyle and they don't want food to be their only pleasure area?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's one of the underlying causes of a lot of this stuff is people they're too stressed out from their day and they don't have some other hobby to go home to and get their mind off food. Or this happens with people who work at home a lot. You work at home, you need a break, you automatically go to the fridge, you grab some food, and you start eating it without paying attention. So to start understanding what you're eating, I always recommend everybody start with a food journal. There's been many studies done on food journals, and it's about a 2-time better result when you write down what you're eating. And this goes to mindful eating, right? So if I'm writing down what I'm eating as I'm eating it, I'm paying attention to what's going in my mouth. And what happens with most of our clients is they start doing this because almost everybody comes to us and they say, my eating's not that bad. I eat pretty good. And, they're 50 pounds overweight. So it's like, well, you're not eating that well. Keep a food journal. And so they keep a food journal. And about a week later, they say, I get it. I know now why I'm overweight. And so keeping that food journal starts to get you in tune with what is actually going on. And the other issue we'll have is parents. So parents will be making food for their kids. And as they're making the food, they'll be eating it without knowing it. And then as their kids don't finish their food, they'll eat the rest of it. And they don't really pay attention to that as being part of their diet, although it's going into their mouth. And so one of the best ways to kind of remember this is there's a Zen proverb: when walking, walk; when eating, eat. So in other words, just be mindful of what you're doing all day long. If you're going to eat, just do that thing. Eat. Don't watch TV. Don't be doing all these other things because you're not paying attention to the food, right? When you're walking, walk. Get off your cell phone. Don't step into the street and get hit by a car when you're walking on the texting and the cell phoning type of thing.
Really funny scenario that I enjoy. One of my favorite things to watch happen, Marshall, because it involves slapstick, small levels of pain or intense levels of pain for a small period of time. And it's real and it happens a lot, except I don't like when it happens to me. So, Brett, have you ever been into like Target? Do you have a Target up there in Boise, Brett? Do you guys have a Target?
Yep.
You know the doors, you walk in and it makes that sound. The doors open there, the automatic opening doors.
The sliding doors, yeah.
The sliding doors. This just in, the sliding door technology that's prevalent up there in Boise and all throughout America. Wow, this is a deep show. But you go in there, you walk into Target, and the other day I'm grabbing a cart. And I said the other day, because I'm 37, it's probably 4 months ago, but I go in there, I'm grabbing a cart. And I'm getting one of those red carts with the gray. It's very plastic. I want metal carts, by the way, Target. But anyways, I'm pushing this plastic cart, and I hear a boom. And I look, and I'm going, what was that? So I look to my right, and there's a dude who walked right into the glass door. Because I guess if you walk in the wrong way, there's like an entrance.
It's never going to open.
And he's on his smartphone and just boom, right into that.
So good.
And he tries to play it off like it didn't happen. Just a huge old mark on his face and it was awesome. And then I thought to myself, that is hilarious. Except I remember when I've done the same thing, except I wasn't like on my phone. I'm just like, wasn't looking down at my phone. I'm just walking fast the wrong way. And I've done that before. So I just think it's important that we pay attention. I think it's important that we're mindful. And Psychology Today has a notable quotable where it reads here. It says, let's start with what is mindfulness. It is deliberately paying attention, being fully aware of what is happening both inside and outside in your body, heart, and mind, and outside yourself, in your environment. Mindfulness is awareness without criticism or judgment. Now, Thomas Edison wanted to chime in. Thomas Edison, the famous entrepreneur who brought recorded audio to life. He invented recorded video. Some would say he's for sure credited with inventing the first practical light bulb. Somebody out there may say he stole it from Tesla. He did. I knew it. And maybe that's true, but the point is he got the credit for it. And he's the founder of General Electric. He said, the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, diet, and the cause of disease, and the cause and prevention of disease. The doctor of the future will give no medication, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, diet, and in the cause of prevention of disease. Can you talk to me about why it's so important that we are just obsessed today about what we are eating in disease prevention as opposed to taking pills to react to our poor eating standards and living and just, why is it so important to be proactive and preventative?
Well, it's cheaper for one. So, it's much better to pay for healthy foods and exercise and moving than it is to go to the doctor and have a heart attack and pay for that. So it's going to save some people a lot of money in the long run. That's number one. But number two is, you're just going to feel better. You're going to enjoy life more. You're going to be able to do things better. You're going to feel better about your body. So if we take care of these things and really focus on the quality of food, the quantity of food, and moving our body like we've talked about, you're going to have a better quality of life. So one of the most important things to get kind of down to this mindfulness thing, we tell our clients to eat until about 80% full. And so what does that mean? Well, it basically means you're still going to be just a little bit hungry when you finish eating. And one of the best ways to start doing this is fill up your plate like you usually would, and then take off about 20% of it. and either leave it on your plate or just set that aside, right? So fill up your plate, take about 20% off, and eat that. And then start understanding and being mindful of how you're feeling.
This is something that I think the listeners, maybe there's somebody out there who can relate, and other people are going to say, you're a sick freak. But this is what's going on. For me personally, when I go to sleep, I wait. I don't really sleep. I just wait for the next morning. So I lay there and I think, it's 10 o'clock, it's 10:20, it's 10:40, it's 11. It's 11:20, it's 11:40, it's 12. It's 12:20, it's 12:40. Crap, it's 1. And I do this. And so I literally, I'll just wait. Then at some point, I don't remember waiting, and then I wake up. But then when I wake up, I go, I've got to eat something right now because I can't sleep. So what I end up doing, Brett, is either A, eating in the middle of the night, or B, not sleeping. So for somebody out there who says, listen, buddy, I have to eat in the middle of the night or I have to sleep, is there any healthy supplement you recommend? Like, do you recommend melatonin? Do you recommend drinking insane amounts of Red Bull intermittently throughout the night? What are your tips out there for curing insomnia?
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff about sleep hygiene that we'll get into, but magnesium is going to be a good go-to supplement for people who are having issues with sleeping, and specifically a chelated form of magnesium. So most magnesiums out there, you're going to see magnesium oxide on the ingredient list. That one is very good if you're having, how do we put this lightly, bowel issues.
Bowel.
But not so good if you're trying to get some sleep. So you want chelated forms of magnesium, which basically means you got a magnesium with something after it. So magnesium glycinate, magnesium citrate. So you want something after that other than oxide.
Okay. Now, here are some tips out there for eating mindfully for all the listeners out there. One, you want to try to set your kitchen timer to 20 minutes and take that time to eat the normal meal. You want to eat for 20 minutes. Why do you want to eat for 20 minutes? Why can't we eat in 2 minutes?
Well, most people do eat 2 minutes, and that's what causes the issue. Number one, we don't digest the food well enough. So digestion starts in the mouth, and this is especially true for carbohydrates. Okay, carbohydrate breakdown starts in the mouth. But if you don't chew your food properly, so you want to chew about, chew each bite about 40 times, which if you start counting the
40?
times you chew, you probably get to 10 to 15 before you want to swallow your food, because that's what you're used to. So you want to make sure that you're doing that to digest it, be mindful of it, and then slow down the nervous system.
Okay. Now you also want to try to eat in a way where you're paying attention. You talked about that earlier, but paying attention to what you're eating. You're not watching TV at the same time. Why is it so important?
Same reason, just so we're paying attention to what's actually going into our mouth. We're going to feel fuller sooner. So it takes about 20 minutes for your fullness response to kick in. And so the opposite side of things, so when I was playing football, I had to gain about, I went from about I had to gain about 30 pounds in a summer, right? So I had to put some weight on. And the goal there is eat as much as you can, as fast as you can, so the fullness response doesn't kick in and stop you. Well, for most people, it's the opposite issue, right? We're trying to lose weight. So it takes about 20 minutes for that fullness response to kick in so we don't overeat. So that's going to help you feel fuller. It's going to help you eat less. It's going to help you enjoy your food more, which ultimately leads to us eating less overall.
Well, let's get into this food hygiene game, this whole food hygiene game that you seem to be caught up in, this idea of having a game plan for sleep, this whole manipulative, what he does here, Marshall, he comes on the show and makes all of our listeners feel bad. And Brett, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of you teaching us the things we need to know. I'm tired of it, but we'll move on to the next point here. Quit teaching us helpful things that make us feel bad, Brett. Okay, food hygiene, or now we're talking about sleep hygiene. Talk to us about sleep hygiene.
So sleep hygiene. So sleep is so important to us. And I think as we become adults and become high achievers, we think that we can cut this thing out. And maybe some people can for a certain amount of time until it starts to catch up with them, right? So like your kids, Clay, so you got like 300 kids and 500 chickens and all that. So what happens if one of your child or children misses some sleep?
Well, one, they start to act like a gremlin. So you start to hear them, and this is how they talk. Dad, I don't want to wake up. That's intense, man. It's just weird. Then their head turns into a gremlin shape. The next thing you know, you find them downstairs in the basement eating bats.
Yeah. So that's what happened. Or they turn into the Exorcist child.
Right.
That's what happens. So that's what happens as adults too. We just don't pay attention to it anymore. We think it's okay to act like that. And so there's an article on Fortune, and there's a study that they're quoting in there. It's called the study is Why Sleep Matters: The Economic Costs of Insufficient Sleep. And it reported that a lack of sleep among the U.S. workforce is costing approximately $411 billion and losing 1.2 million working days per year. Okay, so this is just from sleep. And so if you put that money back into the economy and you put that many days back into working days, all of a sudden we have a much more profitable and productive society, right?
I think people that don't sleep, this is just my take on this. This is my take, and it could be a harsh take. Marshall, the things that I'm saying that will come out of my mouth are very mindful, but they might offend a lot of people.
Okay.
This just in. I was talking to a man recently who is north of 40, and I am not kidding, Brett. He asks me the question. He says, what are your tips for, shutting it off at night? And I said, well, what are you doing when you're trying to shut it off at night, quote unquote? And he says, I usually will play games of video until 2 a.m. trying to wind down, or I'll watch TV till I'll watch Netflix or TV until 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, every night. But this guy's trying to get up at 6. Having a TV in your room and playing video games or watching Netflix is not a move. Also not a move, keeping your phone on while you're trying to sleep. This is real stuff, Brett. I see people that keep the phone by their head, getting Facebook updates all hours of the day, playing video games, watching Netflix. Why is it not a move to try to, quote unquote, wind down while playing video games, watching Netflix, or having your phone right by your cranium?
Yeah, this is most people. They think that the TV is like a wind down thing. And the problem is there's it's called blue light. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this, but the blue light. So when you go out and you see the sun, it tells the human body, hey, it's daytime. I need to be awake. Well, that blue light's the same thing. And so it activates your brain. And so if you're sitting there and you don't have a blue light blocker on of some sort on your computer screen or on your TV or on your phone, then you're constantly sending a signal activating the brain. Hey, it's daytime. I need to be awake. So using that as a sleep aid seems counterintuitive.
That's probably not a move. This just in from our home office off the left coast of the Arkansas River. The Center of Disease Control reports that 1 in 3 adults can't get enough sleep. They don't get enough sleep. People are not getting enough sleep. So we say, you know what? I don't like that statistic. I want to turn it around. I want to start sleeping better, but I don't want to sleep too much. I don't want to be a sleepaholic. And Brett, I see people like that too. I see people that are sort of like the Jabba the Hutts of sleeping. They're sleep gluttons. They'll be sleeping, I'm not kidding. Adults I've run into who are sleeping 11 hours a day, 12 hours a day. They're waking up at noon wearing yoga pants at Whole Foods, and their hair's all crazy looking at noon. They just woke up at noon after watching cartoons or sleeping in till noon. Can you talk to us about how many hours of sleep do we need per day? What's too much? What's enough? Help us.
Yeah, so there's been study after study after study for this, and generally 7 to 9 hours for the adult about 26 to about 50 years old is what you want to hit. Now, that's going to vary person to person. There's some people who have a genetic predisposition to having less sleep. So some people can get by on less. But what happens in our society is we always think that we're the exception to the rule. And so we're saying, oh, yeah, I'm in that percentage. And so what you want to do is you want to kind of start experimenting, right? So go about 2 weeks where it's, 7 hours of sleep, 2 weeks where it's 6 hours of sleep, 2 weeks where it's 8 hours of sleep. And you just start paying attention to your ability to function during the day, your productivity, your emotional kind of response to things. Are you snapping at people? Are you feeling good about life? And pay attention to that and figure out what your optimal level is. But so Arianna Huffington, who she wrote a book about sleep because this ended up being a major issue for her. She was a hard driver. She was always going. And she's the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the Huffington Post. But she believes that sleeping is so important that she actually stepped down from her role at the Huffington Post to start a company called Thrive Global. And her goal with that is to hopefully turn sleep and emotional and physical well-being into the corporate world's most celebrated productivity tool. This is how important it is to somebody at that level of success. Another person, Jeff Bezos, right? So everybody knows Jeff Bezos as founder of Amazon. 8 hours of sleep per night. And what Jeff Bezos said is, as any of us go through our lives, we don't need to maximize the number of decisions we make per day. He said we don't need to maximize the number of decisions we make per day. Making a small number of key decisions well is more important than making a large number of decisions. If you shortchange your sleep, you might get a couple extra productive hours, in quotes, but that productivity might be an illusion. This is from one of the most successful people ever to roam the earth.
That's just if you're talking about finances or business. I mean, or Marshall, have you even heard of this company, this startup company, Amazon?
Is it a startup?
Yeah, it's
company?
Some people are using it.
Some people.
That's an irrelevant quote, obviously. We move on. Don't just throw your fancy startup people we've never heard of at us there, Brett, to make us feel
fledgling
like
company probably not going to make it.
Don't give us justification by just naming off random billionaires who control the world. Whatever, Brett. Okay, so sleep hygiene. So I think when you're out there and you're listening and you're going, okay, I got to make this show actionable. I want to recap what we've talked about so far, okay? 1, you got to move all day long. Every hour, just move around for 5 minutes. Move around for every hour, move around for 5 minutes. At the office, I try not to ever sit at all. I freaking hate sitting because it's just, I get paid to sit. I get paid to sit. My job is to sit most of the time, and I hate it, so I have to move around all day. Move number 2. Don't sit all day and then get up there and try to sprint or do some intense activity when you haven't warmed up. So as you're ending your day, maybe go for a walk and then go work out or, do a warm-up, that kind of thing. Step 3. Eat mindfully, okay? Think about what you're eating. Make sure you're eating, think about it. Make sure you're intentional. Don't watch TV while you're eating. Don't make it a competition to see who can eat the fastest. By the way, that's going to cut down my entire career as a world champion hot dog eater that I was aspiring to enter into. Marshall, there are those competitive eating competitions.
Yeah.
Typically where an Asian man will win.
Right.
I thought about as a goal for next year was I want to win that.
You want to win that?
Well, now I'm going to take it off because that's probably not a good move.
Well, it's not a life success tip.
Point number 4, practice good sleep hygiene. No TV, baby. No TV, no video games, no smartphones as you're winding down. That's not a move. And then how do you know if you're not getting enough sleep? How do you know? Well, okay. One is if you're very emotional all the time. Brett, I'm sure you've seen your clients that will come into a workout looking like they haven't been to sleep, but they have the discipline to show up, but not the discipline to go to bed previous to showing up. It's like they were out all night binge drinking and running around with glow sticks, and then they show up at your gym to work out. Why is it not helpful if you work out but you don't eat well?
Well, if you don't eat well, you don't sleep well, and you come and work out, these are all stressors to the body. So working out, although it may be good for you, if you're not sleeping well, you're not recovering well. If you're not eating well, you're not recovering well. And so if you come, you just beat your body up all the time. You're just putting yourself through the meat grinder over and over and over again, which ends up overstressing your body, and it ends up giving you the opposite effect on your health than you're looking for.
Marshall, I don't know that we all want to run through the meat grinder of life after hearing this.
It doesn't sound comfortable.
You're going to take that quote off the wall. Marshall has a quote on the wall he put up there, Brett. It says, every day, run through the meat grinder.
I actually keep it on my computer screen as a nightlight, but while I'm trying to go to bed.
No longer take that quote down there, Marshall. Okay, so tell us about you have kind of a story here. You've worked with a lot of clients, Brett, a lot of people who are parents with newborns. Can you talk to us about some of the stories about how you've been able to help some of your clients get in great shape and great health as a result of eating right, sleeping right, becoming mindful? Give us some encouraging stories.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things, and you kind of mentioned parents with newborns. So, we get a lot of women who have, had their babies, they're ready to get back into shape, and they're ready to start rolling again. Well, number one, we don't want to throw them into forging elite fitness right after they got done having a baby, right? So this whole thing of these movie stars who get back into shape in 3 months after having their baby is not a realistic thing for most people. And so just like everybody, we ease everybody in, right? So we ease them into exercise. We get them walking again. We get them doing movements that are going to get them strong in a very basic approach. And then sleeping with newborns is not the easiest thing either, right? So you're getting up, you're feeding these kids. And so when you sleep, you have to get really good deep sleep. And so the quality of sleep is just important as the quantity. So if you're getting 7 to 9 hours of in bed time, but only about 4 of that are quality, then we still have an issue, right? And so we got to look at quality of sleep. And that comes down to, what are you doing to get ready for bed? Do you need some supplements? So are you low in things like magnesium, which about 60% of the population is low in magnesium. So do you need to be supplementing with something? Are you able to turn your brain off? Are you getting the blue light out of your life at night? Those types of things. So when we start looking at those things with these people, all of a sudden they start getting a better quality of sleep. And now with a newborn, you're waking up every 2 to 3 hours. So as close as possible, we want to hit your sleep cycles and your sleep rhythms when we're getting up at those times. And so we just start to look at all of these things to make sure that somebody's taking a balanced approach to their health and fitness, so that then during the day we're feeling better and we're not hectic and frantic and emotionally charged all day long.
Thrive Nation, if you're out there today and you're saying to yourself, you know what, I probably need to talk to a guy like Brett. Brett, my understanding is you can kind of counsel, coach, help our listeners optimize, kind of like life coach meets health fitness person guy. But you can do that remotely for people all over the world. You've been doing that for a long time. Can you tell us about how you can help some of our listeners out there that maybe need some one-on-one coaching from a work-life balance mentor such as yourself?
Yeah, basically what I do is I try to optimize people's happiness, decrease their stress through the physical body and through mental tools and time management techniques. And so the way that we do that is we just start very basically. We start with a simple consultation. Again, it can be over the phone like it is with most people. And then we go from there. It's a very customized approach based on their individual lifestyle and what they're looking for. And all we need to do to set that consultation up is you can just give me a text at 208-991-6537. Again, 208-991-6537.
And then if I do a consultation with you, if somebody out there does a consultation with you, how much money is it going to set somebody back? I mean, a lot of people are saying, listen, I don't want to die prematurely, but I don't want it to cost more. I mean, if I could not die prematurely and I could do it for less than a certain amount, it might be worth it to me. But somebody says, listen, if this guy can help me not die prematurely, but it's more than a certain number, I don't care, because I would rather have my extra money with me in my coffin and take it with me. That's a thing. I mean, so Brett, how much does it cost for to work with you? What kind of ballpark are we talking about?
So I start at $1,000 and we go up from there depending on the complexity of the individual. So essentially we're about the same or less than a personal trainer, but you're going to get a total lifestyle transformation versus just a body transformation.
Now, I've heard you say that fitness is 2/3 what you eat. So hypothetically, if I just reached out to you and I started eating better and sleeping better, 2/3 of the battle isn't even related to working out itself. So I could essentially win 2/3 of the battle and then go to like a big box gym and pay like $30 a month, and get. I mean, is that accurate? Is eating and sleep 2/3 of the fitness battle?
The game is it's about 100% nutrition, because you can't outwork your nutrition. And so it doesn't matter what we do, unless you're a professional athlete and you're working out 8 hours a day, you're not going to outwork that bad nutrition. So it starts with nutrition. It starts with mindset. It starts with proper sleep, proper recovery. The exercise is an important piece of it. But as we talked about today, moving throughout the day is a much more important piece. So there are so many of these moves that we can do that don't involve ever stepping foot in a gym.
Okay. So if you're out there today and you're saying to yourself, listen, I now know that I need to move all day long. I need to, not just have these aggressive, ridiculous short-term sprint workouts. I need to have more of a sustainable workout. You now understand that we got to eat more mindfully. We now understand that we got to practice good sleep hygiene, but you need a little bit of help. Brett, one more time, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, just shoot me a quick text telling me that you're interested in performance coaching, and my phone number again is 208-991-6537.
Brett, you are a great American, despite the fact that your horrible, wretched team of ill reputes up there in Boise did beat Oklahoma in the what was it, the Ford Festiva Bowl? What was that minor bowl that
The Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. Yeah.
Oh, the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. I thought it was the. I try to black it out, Marshall. I try to black it out. But despite being a completely horrible person that beat our great team with your team of ill reputes, we thank you for being on the show, and may you and your Smurf turf have a great day.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Clay.
All right, hey, Brett. We always want to end with a 3, 2, and a 1. So are you ready for that, Brett?
I'm ready.
Okay, Marshall, you ready?
I'm ready.
Andrew, you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Jason, are you ready? Oh, yeah. Here we go. 3, 2, 1,
boom.